The galaxy had a cruel habit of forgetting. It forgot the weak, the broken, and the quiet. Earth was all three once. The alien empires had watched this small blue world for centuries. They saw a planet divided by borders and wars. They saw people who fought each other more than they reached for the stars. And they laughed. To the empires, Earth was not a threat. It was a resource. A place to take from, to burn, to rule. Some alien lords even called it the Sleeping Rock. Their fleets circled above in ages past, testing Earth's defenses, taking samples, even capturing humans to use as slaves in their far-off worlds. Each invasion left scars, but none were forgotten. The people of Earth endured. That was their curse and their gift. When their cities burned, they rebuilt. When their skies darkened, they learned to light them again. Humanity bled, but it never gave up. It carried anger quietly, burying it under layers of silence and patience. The empires mistook this silence as weakness. They thought Earth would never rise, but Earth was not sleeping. Earth was watching. Generations passed, and the planet grew stronger in shadows. Humanity built ships in secret shipyards beneath mountains and oceans. They forged weapons not for parades, but for survival. They trained pilots who were not called heroes, but ghosts. Men and women ready to fight and die in silence, unknown and unseen. While the alien lords flaunted their empires, humanity learned restraint. Then came the discovery. Deep under the planet's crust, buried since before history, humanity unearthed something that should not have existed. It was not alien and yet not entirely human either. A power source ancient as the stars, pulsing like a living heart, hidden in the bones of the Earth itself. Scientists called it the core. The soldiers gave it another name, the Fury. The core changed everything. Ships that once crawled now soared faster than light. Weapons that once pierced armor now shattered fleets. Engines that once burned fuel now roared with endless fire. Humanity had unlocked something the empires had long forgotten. A relic of the old universe. From a time before kings and crowns, still, Earth stayed silent. But silence does not last forever. The empires returned, arrogant as always. Their fleets were vast, carrying banners of conquest. They expected fear. They expected begging. They expected humanity to kneel, as so many others had before them. But when their first fleet entered Earth's skies, the world did not tremble. It roared. The clouds split apart, and from the darkness rose the ruthless space jets of Earth. Black as midnight, burning with blue fire, they climbed from the atmosphere like arrows of vengeance. They did not form grand parades. They did not announce themselves with speeches. They simply struck. The alien fleet, proud and towering, was shattered in minutes. Flagships exploded in blossoms of light. Cruisers tore apart as if made of glass. The space jets moved with impossible speed, cutting through warships like blades through paper. Pilots who had trained in silence for generations finally unleashed their fury. They were merciless. The aliens panicked. For the first time in centuries, they felt fear. These were not the humans they had once mocked. This was not the weak planet they had enslaved. This was something else, something born of silence, rage, and ancient power. From the ground below, people watched the sky burn. They saw alien fire rain down like meteors, but it was not Earth's cities falling. It was the conquerors. Children pointed at the streaks of light and cheered. Old men who had once seen Earth suffer wept because they knew the truth. The age of humiliation was over. That battle was not the end. It was only the beginning. For the first time in galactic history, an empire's throne trembled because of Earth. Other rulers watched from afar, confused and unsettled. Who had given humans such power? Who had taught them such speed, such fire, such merciless resolve? They did not understand the truth. Humanity had not been given power. Humanity had taken it, earned it, and hidden it until the right moment. The moment was now. The galaxy had forgotten Earth. But Earth had not forgotten the galaxy. And as the ruthless space jets rose higher into the stars, there was no doubt. This time, humanity would not stay silent. This time, humanity would strike back. The galaxy was not silent after Earth's first strike. It screamed. When the alien fleet above Earth was destroyed, the news spread like wildfire. Empires that had ruled for thousands of years, unchallenged and arrogant, suddenly faced a truth they had never imagined. Humans had risen. Their ships had not only fought but shattered a force considered invincible. The first empire to feel this storm was the Zorith Dominion. For centuries, the Zoriths had ruled with claws of iron. Their warlords enslaved worlds, their armies burned planets, and their rulers sat on thrones made from the bones of conquered species. They were feared, hated, and unstoppable. Until now. The Zorith warlords sent a second fleet to Earth larger than the first. They thought the first loss was chance, a trick of surprise. They believed their numbers and ancient weapons would crush human defiance, but they did not understand what Earth had become. The ruthless space jets launched again, this time not to defend but to hunt. They rose from hidden bases across the solar system, their engines glowing with the ancient core's power. Thousands of jets moved like a single storm. They did not wait for the enemy to come close. They met the fleet in deep space, far from Earth's skies. The battle was brutal and short. The alien ships were massive, bristling with weapons, but they were slow, predictable, old. The space jets were fast, sharp, merciless. They cut through shields, tore into hulls, and turned proud flagships into floating wreckage. Alien warlords who had once ordered the destruction of worlds now screamed in panic as their thrones burned within their ships. For the first time in history, the Zorith Dominion fled. Their mighty fleet scattered like frightened prey, chased by humans who showed no mercy. It was not war. It was slaughter. The survivors limped back to their homeworld with news that shattered the Dominion's pride. The humans are hunters. On Earth, there was no celebration. The people did not see victory as glory. They saw it as survival, but deep inside every heart a spark grew brighter. Humanity had been underestimated for so long, and now the galaxy would pay for its arrogance. The governments of Earth formed a single voice, something that had never been achieved in centuries of division. Old rivals shook hands. Old enemies stood side by side. Under the black banner of survival, humanity became one. They did not seek conquest for riches or power. They sought justice. They sought revenge. The next step was bold, dangerous, unthinkable. Earth would not wait for empires to come. Earth would take the fight to them. The ruthless space jets left the solar system for the first time. They flew across the stars with fire behind them, carrying humanity's fury into the heart of the Dominion. The Zorith homeworld was a fortress. Its skies were filled with defense fleets, its cities covered in metal towers, its throne hall carved into mountains of black stone. For ages, no enemy had ever reached it. No enemy had ever dared. But on that day, the skies of the Zorith homeworld burned. The space jets descended like falling stars. They punched through defenses, weaving between towers of metal, striking without pause. The aliens fought back with desperation, but their weapons were slow, clumsy, outdated. The humans moved like shadows of fire, cutting down every fleet, every stronghold. And then it happened. The unthinkable. The throne of the Zorith Dominion fell. The mighty warlord, who had ruled over hundreds of enslaved worlds, fled his own palace in terror. His armies broke, his generals begged, and his people trembled as the jets screamed above their cities. The throne that had stood for 1,000 years was reduced to ashes in a single night. The galaxy shivered. Empires that had once laughed at Earth now whispered in fear. They had seen the impossible, a small world forgotten and mocked, had destroyed a throne of iron. The balance of power that had lasted for centuries was broken. On Earth, the people stood together under the stars, watching the news spread. They did not cheer with arrogance. They stood in silence, with heavy hearts, knowing what this meant. The galaxy would never forgive them. The galaxy would unite against them, but humanity no longer feared. They had lived in fear for too long. Now it was the galaxy's turn. The ruthless space jets returned home, silent and merciless. Their pilots carried no songs, only scars. Yet their message was clear. Earth had risen and thrones would fall. The storm had only begun. The fall of the Zorith throne was like a thunderclap across the galaxy. For ages, the empires had believed their rule unshakable, eternal, and beyond challenge. Yet in a single strike, the humans had shattered that illusion. One of the greatest thrones now lay in ruins, its warlord hiding in shame. Panic spread. The proud rulers of other empires gathered in secret halls, far away from Earth's watchful eyes. They spoke not in arrogance anymore, but in fear. The Valari hierarchy, masters of genetic science, whispered of human unpredictability. The Dravik horde, with fleets larger than suns, growled that humanity had awakened something dangerous. The Yorith kings, who once enslaved millions of humans, demanded immediate destruction of Earth before it grew stronger. And yet, beneath their fear burned rage. How dare a small, once insignificant planet rise against them? How dare humanity topple a throne that had stood for centuries? It was not just a threat to their power, it was an insult to their pride. So the rulers gathered their fleets. Not one empire, not two, but many. Ships blackened the stars as countless banners united, not out of friendship but out of shared hatred. For once, the empires who had always warred among themselves agreed on one thing. Earth must burn, the galaxy prepared for war. On Earth, silence filled the command halls. The leaders of humanity knew what was coming. The news was clear. Dozens of empires had joined hands to crush them. Humanity was no longer fighting one throne. It was fighting them all. Some leaders feared it was hopeless. The enemy was vast, countless, endless. But the pilots of the Ruthless space jets did not flinch. They had always trained for this moment, even if they never admitted it. They were not fighting for glory nor for riches. They were fighting for their people, for the children who looked up at the stars with fear. In one quiet moment before the storm, a pilot named Kale stood at the edge of a hangar, staring at the stars. His jet stood ready behind him, its black frame glowing faintly with the light of the core. He whispered to himself, "We were slaves once. We were prey, but no more. If we must burn, we will burn as hunters." He was not alone. Thousands of pilots shared the same vow. The empires did not wait long. Their fleets entered the solar system like an endless tide. Stars were swallowed by ships, their shadows stretching across planets. The Earth shook as alarms filled the air. Billions watched the sky, praying, fearing, waiting. The invasion had begun. From the moon, from Mars, from hidden stations near Saturn, the Ruthless space jets rose. Black fire filled the void as they shot toward the approaching fleets. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The empires fought with numbers, unleashing weapon fire like storms of lightning. Whole planets trembled under the barrage, but the space jets moved like shadows, faster than thought, sharper than flame. They tore through cruisers, split apart carriers, and dived into swarms without fear. For every human jet that fell, 10 enemy ships were destroyed. But the enemy was endless. No matter how many were shattered, more arrived. The sky became a graveyard of burning wrecks, drifting bodies, and broken pride. From Earth's surface, people watched the night glow with war. The sky was painted with fire like 1,000 new suns. Children cried, families held each other, and old survivors whispered prayers knowing the cost of survival was heavy. In the middle of the chaos, the human leaders made a decision. If they only fought defensively, they would eventually fall. The empires had too many ships, too many soldiers, too much pride. Humanity needed something greater, something that would shatter not just fleets, but the very will of the galaxy. The ancient core still held secrets, and deep beneath Earth, scientists had unlocked more of its power. It was dangerous, unstable, but it could change everything. The plan was bold, reckless, and terrifying. Unleash the core fully, even if it meant burning Earth's own skies. The pilots received the order without hesitation. They knew what it meant. Many would not return, but none refused. Kale, strapped into his jet, whispered one last promise before launching. For Earth. for every scar they gave us, for every throne they built on our bones. The ruthless space jets surged forward, their engines now glowing brighter than stars. The core's power was no longer hidden. It was unleashed. The empires expected victory. Instead, they saw terror. Jets moved faster than any weapon could track. Beams of ancient fire ripped through capital ships. Flagships that had ruled the stars for centuries fell in minutes. The gathered empires, so confident in their numbers, realized the truth too late. Earth was not fighting for conquest. Earth was fighting for survival, and nothing is more dangerous than the desperate will to live. As the first wave of empires broke, their thrones began to tremble. The galaxy had thought Earth would fall, but the storm had only grown stronger. The war had truly begun. The war spread like a storm across the galaxy. At first, the empires believed Earth's victories were chance, accidents of luck, or tricks of new technology. But as more fleets burned, as more thrones shook, the truth became impossible to ignore. Humanity was not surviving by chance. Humanity was winning. The ruthless space jets did not fight like soldiers of empire. They fought like ghosts, appearing where no enemy expected, striking with merciless precision, then vanishing into silence. Alien generals tried to predict them, but the humans were unpredictable. Alien kings tried to intimidate them, but the humans were unafraid. The galaxy began to whisper. Whole worlds that had once been enslaved by alien rulers now looked to the skies with hope. For the first time in living memory, they saw the thrones of their oppressors crack. Humanity did not stop at defense. Earth's leaders made a decision that stunned the galaxy. They would carry the war straight into the heart of the empires, not only to survive but to make sure no throne would ever rise again to threaten their world. And so the space jets crossed the stars. The first target was the Valari hierarchy. For centuries, the Valari had prided themselves on their science. They altered their soldiers with genetic perfection, turning them into tall, elegant killers. They thought themselves superior to all species. They called humans unfinished clay, but clay once hardened by fire becomes stone. When the ruthless space jets entered Valari space, the Valari unleashed their perfect armies. Fleets of silver ships moved with elegance and discipline, their commanders certain of victory. Yet discipline broke under fire. The jets struck with a fury the Valari could not match. Their elegant ships shattered like glass, their perfect armies screamed like any others. The Valari throne, built high upon a crystal tower, stood for 10,000 years. It fell in a single night. The galaxy trembled again. Next came the Dravik horde. The Draviks believed in numbers, in overwhelming force. They filled the stars with their fleets swarming like locusts. To them, war was simple. Drown the enemy in endless ships. But numbers mean nothing when fear takes root. The ruthless space jets sliced through the swarm, moving faster than the Draviks could track. Capital ships exploded one after another, turning the swarm into chaos. Dravik commanders screamed at their soldiers to fight, but panic spread like fire. The horde that once consumed worlds was consumed by its own terror. The Dravik throne, a fortress carved into a dying star, collapsed. Its warlord fled into the void, hunted by humans who did not stop. Every throne that fell carried a message. Earth was not conquering. Earth was not enslaving. Earth was breaking chains. Across the galaxy, enslaved worlds rose in rebellion. Peoples long silenced by alien whips now shouted in defiance. They whispered the same word in countless tongues. Humans. Hope had returned to the stars, but hope came with fear. For every world that cheered Earth, there were rulers who trembled. Thrones that had lasted thousands of years now saw their doom. Kings who once sat in arrogance now sat in silence, waiting for the black fire of the space jets to appear above their skies. Some sent envoys begging for peace. Others sent spies desperate to learn the secret of Earth's ancient core, but humanity gave no secrets. And as for peace, there would be none. Not while chains still clung to innocent worlds, not while thrones still rose upon bones. On Earth, the cost of war grew heavier. Pilots did not always return. Families wept as black coffins were lowered into the soil. The names of the fallen were carved into endless walls glowing beneath the stars. Humanity was not untouched by pain. Every victory was bought with blood. Yet this pain did not weaken them. It made them stronger. Each fallen pilot became a promise. Each lost life became a vow. No throne will rise again on our silence. Kale, now a commander, stood among his pilots on a distant world once enslaved by the Volari. The people of that planet bowed before the humans, but Kale raised them to their feet. "Do not bow to us," he told them. "Bow to no one ever again. This is why we fight, not for thrones, but for freedom." The crowd wept. For the first time, they believed the galaxy might one day belong not to kings, but to people. The empires still gathered, desperate and afraid. But one by one their thrones crumbled. Palaces turned to ashes. Crowns melted in fire. Rulers begged for mercy and found none. The galaxy had known many wars, but never like this. This was not conquest. This was reckoning. The ruthless space jets of Earth were not just breaking empires. They were burning history itself, and the galaxy wondered with both fear and hope. When all thrones were ashes, what would humanity build in their place? The galaxy had never seen such days. For thousands of years, empires rose and fell, but always the cycle remained the same. A throne toppled, another replaced it. The galaxy had never imagined a storm that would burn all thrones one after another without stopping. Yet that storm now raged, and its name was Earth. The ruthless space jets cut across the stars, leaving ruins where once stood proud palaces. The Volari towers lay broken. The Dravik fortress was ash. The Zorath throne, once carved from mountains, was nothing but rubble. Everywhere the humans went, rulers trembled and subjects whispered of freedom. But in the silence after each victory, something new began. The galaxy did not only fear Earth, they started to beg. Warlords who had once shouted orders now fell to their knees. Alien kings who once demanded slaves now sent envoys with desperate gifts, begging to be spared. Entire courts collapsed into shame as word spread that the humans did not bargain, did not compromise, did not forgive. In hidden chambers, alien rulers argued with fear in their eyes. If we fight, we die. If we surrender, will they let us live? They destroy thrones, not people. Perhaps if we kneel, but no answer brought peace. Humanity was not like other conquerors. They did not replace thrones with their own banners. They simply shattered them and left ashes behind. That to the galaxy was even more terrifying. For how do you fight an enemy who does not seek to rule, but only to destroy the chains you built? On Earth there was no joy in these victories. The people did not dance in the streets. They watched the long lists of fallen pilots' names carved in stone. They listened to families weeping. They remembered that every throne broken was bought with human blood. Kyle, now a symbol of Earth's fight, walked among those families. He carried medals, but he hated giving them. Each medal meant a life that never returned home. He often whispered to himself, "How many more must we lose before the galaxy is free?" Yet whenever he looked up at the stars, he remembered the truth. Humanity had lived as prey for too long. If the cost of freedom was blood, then humanity would pay it. The galaxy grew divided. Some species began to worship humans, calling them saviors. On enslaved worlds, statues of human pilots were built, carved in black stone, their wings stretching toward the sky. Songs spread of Earth's fire, sung by children who had never known freedom until the jets came. But others whispered fear. If humans could break every throne, what would stop them from becoming the new kings? Were they truly liberators? Or was this only the beginning of another empire? The rulers who still clung to power fed this fear. They spread lies, claiming Earth wanted dominion, that humanity fought not for freedom but for its own throne. But deep down they knew the truth. Earth did not want crowns. Earth wanted the galaxy to never see crowns again. The begging grew louder. The Yorath kings, who had once enslaved millions of humans, sent their emissaries crawling on their knees. They offered jewels, fleets, even whole worlds if humanity would spare them. But Earth did not want jewels. Earth did not want worlds. Earth wanted justice. When the ruthless space jets entered Yorath space, no mercy was given. The jets screamed across the skies, and the Yorath throne cracked like dry stone. Their kings, once proud, wept as their palaces fell into dust. A message was broadcast across the stars. For every human you enslaved, we take your crown. For every chain you forged, we break your throne. The galaxy trembled at those words, but victory carried weight. In quiet moments, Earth's leaders gathered in silence. They wondered what would come after the war. Would the galaxy unite in peace or turn on humanity once all thrones were gone? Would the freed worlds love them or fear them? No answer came, only the war. And still the jets flew, their black wings cutting through stars, their pilots carrying both hope and sorrow in equal measure. Kale stood before his squad one night as they prepared for another assault. He looked into the tired eyes of his pilots. Some were barely more than children. Others had flown since the first battles. All bore scars, seen and unseen. "We are not kings," Kale told them softly. "We are not conquerors. We are a shield, a fire, a storm. When we are done, there will be no more thrones for anyone to fear. That is why we fight. That is why we die. Remember that." His words carried not pride but heavy truth. The pilots nodded in silence. They did not seek glory. They sought an ending. And so the ruthless space jets continued their path, unstoppable, merciless, driven by fury and sacrifice. Thrones turned to ashes. Warlords begged for mercy. Empires collapsed into dust. The galaxy had always believed rulers were eternal. But now, as black fire lit the stars, they learned another truth. Nothing built on chains would last. And Earth, once forgotten, was the one to teach them. The galaxy could no longer deny the truth. Thrones had fallen one by one. Proud rulers reduced to ash, warlords turned to beggars. Yet the storm of Earth did not stop. The ruthless space jets moved across the stars like an endless tide, their fire consuming the pride of ages. But not all rulers were ready to surrender. Across hidden star systems, the last empires gathered. Kings, queens, and generals met in shadowed halls, their voices filled with desperation. They were enemies once, always fighting each other. But now for the first time they united under one purpose: to end humanity. They called it the last stand of thrones. Every empire poured its strength into this final armada. Fleets larger than anything the galaxy had seen filled the void. Dreadnoughts the size of moons, carriers with endless swarms, weapons forged in ancient vaults. All were prepared for one single battle. The rulers swore oaths. "We will drown the humans in fire. We will crush their jets like insects. We will bury Earth in silence forever." It was not courage that drove them. It was fear. The fear of seeing their crowns shattered, their palaces burning, their names erased from history. Fear made them dangerous. On Earth, the message of this gathering was clear. Humanity knew the final battle was coming. The scale of the enemy was greater than anything they had faced before. Billions of lives hung in the balance. If they failed now, there would be no second chance. The command halls of Earth were filled with silence. Leaders from every nation stood together, their eyes heavy with worry. For the first time, some wondered if humanity had reached its limit. But the pilots did not doubt. Kyle stood before his squadron, now veterans marked by scars and grief. His voice was calm, steady. "They call this the last stand of thrones," he said. "Let it be so. Let this be the battle where thrones end forever. We will not fight for glory. We will fight for our children, for the worlds that still live in chains, for the names of those we buried. And when the stars burn tonight, let the galaxy remember, humanity never kneels." His words echoed in their hearts like fire. The day came. The human fleet rose from the solar system, the black wings of the ruthless space jets leading the way. Behind them came carriers, cruisers, and weapons powered by the ancient core, glowing like fragments of suns. Humanity did not march to defend. Humanity marched to end. The enemy awaited them in the void between stars. The combined fleets of the last empires filled the darkness with fire and banners. It was a wall of iron and arrogance stretching farther than sight could see. The galaxy held its breath. Then the storm began. The last stand was chaos. Beams of light brighter than suns cut through the void. Explosions lit the darkness like 1,000 dawns. Whole fleets vanished in seconds, their wreckage drifting as silent graves. The ruthless space jets dove into the storm, their black frames weaving through endless fire. They struck without mercy, cutting down giants, splitting dreadnoughts, turning proud ships into ash. For every jet that fell, 100 enemy ships followed. The empires fought with desperation. They unleashed weapons sealed for millennia. They sent swarms that blotted out stars. They sacrificed entire fleets to stop the humans, but nothing worked. Fear had already broken them. Their unity was not born of loyalty, but of terror, and terror does not last in fire. One by one, the thrones crumbled even before the battle ended. Rulers screamed from their flagships, ordering soldiers to fight, but their voices carried no strength. Their army saw the black fire of Earth and lost their will. Amid the chaos, Kale's squadron carved a path toward the heart of the enemy fleet. His jet roared with the power of the core, its engines blazing like a second sun. His voice came across the comms, steady and cold. Break their crowns. Burn their thrones. The squadron followed without hesitation. They struck the enemy's command ships one after another, until the chain of command collapsed. Leaders who had once ruled entire star systems fled in panic. Some begged for mercy over open channels, their voices trembling. But mercy had no place here. Humanity remembered the chains, the scars, the graves left by these rulers. And so the jets answered not with words, but with fire. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was written from the first moment. The last stand of thrones was not a stand at all. It was a fall. When the final dreadnought broke apart in flames, silence filled the void. The thrones of the galaxy, once eternal, were gone. Humanity stood alone, scarred and bloodied, but unbroken. Yet victory carried weight heavier than chains. The galaxy was free, but what came next was uncertain. Freed worlds cheered, but also looked at Earth with awe and fear. Was humanity truly their liberator, or would they rise as the new rulers of ashes? Kale, watching the wreckage drift among the stars, whispered to himself, "No thrones. Not for them. Not for us. Let the galaxy belong to its people, not its kings." His words, though quiet, carried the hope of humanity. The war was nearly over, but the final chapter was yet to be written. The war was over. The last dreadnought of the enemy drifted as burning wreckage in the void. Its proud banners turned to ash, its ruler silenced forever. The so-called last stand of thrones had not been a stand at all. It had been a collapse, swift and merciless. The galaxy that once bowed before kings, emperors, and warlords now stood in silence. Thrones lay in ruins, and at the center of it all was Earth. The ruthless space jets, scarred and reduced in number, returned to orbit above their blue homeworld. They did not return in triumphal parade, but in quiet formation, each fighter carrying the weight of lost comrades. The galaxy saw them not as conquerors, but as something far more dangerous, humans who had shown they could shatter empires with nothing but iron will and fire. Across newly freed worlds, voices rose in celebration. Chains had been broken, prisons opened, slaves unbound. Crowds sang the names of Earth's pilots, praising them as liberators, saviors, heroes. But beneath the joy was something else. Fear. The galaxy asked the question no one dared speak aloud. Would humanity now take the crowns for themselves? After all, they had the power. No fleet remained that could resist them. No throne stood taller than theirs. If Earth demanded obedience, who could say no? The silence of that question weighed heavier than any battle. In the command halls of Earth, the leaders gathered. Generals, scientists, and representatives from every land looked at the maps of shattered empires. The galaxy was theirs to claim. Yet their faces showed not hunger but uncertainty. Some voices argued fierce and cold. If we do not rule, another tyrant will rise. We must guide them, control them, shape the galaxy in our image. Others shook their heads. We fought to destroy thrones, not to replace them. If we take crowns, we become the same monsters we hated. The debate raged for days, no side willing to yield. But in the hangars, the pilots who had carried the war on their shoulders had no doubts. Kale stood with his squadron, their black jets still glowing faintly from battle. His voice was soft, yet it carried through the steel halls. We did not fight for power. We fought for freedom. Thrones burn, yes, but if we build new thrones, then all of this was for nothing. No crown belongs on human heads. Let the galaxy belong to its people. His words spread, carried from mouth to mouth across soldiers and citizens alike. Humanity remembered why they had risen. Because they had been pushed, chained, threatened. They had not wanted to rule. They had wanted only to stand free. So when the galaxy waited for Earth to claim dominion, the answer came like a storm breaking into light. Earth spoke not as conqueror, but as voice of fire and hope. We will not take thrones. We will not rule in ash. The galaxy is free. Build your worlds, guide your people, and remember this. No tyrant shall rise again while humanity breathes. The message spread like dawn after endless night. Worlds long silenced wept in relief. Chains once thought eternal were thrown into dust. For the first time in ages, the galaxy was not ruled by crowns, but by the will of free peoples. But victory left scars. Millions of humans had fallen in the war. Families grieved. Children grew up without parents. Homes across Earth carried empty chairs at their tables. Even in freedom, sorrow lived. Kyle often stood alone on the observation deck, looking at the stars. His eyes were tired, his voice quiet. We won, he whispered, but at a price too heavy to count. Yet when he saw the freed worlds, their skies filled with laughter instead of chains, he knew the price was worth it. Humanity had given more than blood. They had given hope. The ruthless space jets, once feared as destroyers, became symbols not of terror but of resistance. Their black wings no longer meant fire and ash, but the promise that no empire, no tyrant, no throne could ever again enslave the galaxy. The ancient power they had awakened was not just in their engines, nor in their weapons, it was in their spirit. The unbreakable will of a species that had once been underestimated, mocked, dismissed. And now that will had reshaped the stars. Generations later, songs would be sung of Earth's choice. Children across thousands of worlds would learn the words. Humanity had the power to rule but chose to walk away. The galaxy would never forget the war, nor the ashes of thrones. But it would always remember the moment humanity stood above all, then lowered their hand, leaving the stars free. Kyle's last words to his squadron became the vow of an age. We are not kings. We are not gods. We are humans, and we will never kneel, nor make others kneel. And so the ruthless space jets of Earth passed into legend, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the fire that burned away crowns and gave the galaxy back its sky.